Hey, I wanted to let you know I also have a side channel called Friday Night Arcade Plays. If you've seen all the regular episodes here on the main channel and are looking for something extra, or just want to hang out with me in a more casual setting, stop by youtube.com/Friday Night Arcade Plays. I play random old and new stuff, and it's just kind of a laid-back, chill thing. I've got a whole backlog of older videos from the early days on the channel too, so you can check those out and see how bad they were. And if you're new here to the main channel, I've got over 100 official episodes, so you can binge them all from the beginning or check out the starter pack playlist if you like. I'll put a link to everything in the pinned comment below. If you want to subscribe for more, that's cool. If not, that's fine too. Either way, subscribe for new episodes here on the main channel, and you can also subscribe to Friday Night Arcade Plays for the more casual Let's Plays, or you can skip that if you don't want those cluttering up your feeds. I don't mind. As always, thank you for watching, and hope to see you soon over at Friday Night Arcade Plays. Thanks to Linux Overdose, Jeffrey Fernandez, Ken Gage, Echo 425, and several others for suggesting this one. Mountain King on the Atari 2600. This was programmed by Ed Salvo, who also worked on several other Atari games to include Skeet Shoot, Space Chase, and the Atari adaptation of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Mountain King was published by CBS Electronics in 1983 and follows in the footsteps of other Atari adventure titles, specifically Activision's Pitfall, this time around sending players on an adventure into an abandoned mine looking for treasure.
When you're playing Mountain King, music is everything. Cause if you hear this melody, it could mean victory. Grab 1,000 diamonds as you go climbing. Jump and be a winner or be a spider's dinner. Now look for the spirit, music says you're near it. Find it with your flashlight, why don't you get uptight? Let's go! Grab the crown, now you hear this music sound. Needle back the music brings, you'll be the Mountain King.
Mountain King for all Atari home systems, ColecoVision, and Commodore 64. From CBS Electronics, where the excitement never ends.
Pay special attention to that bat stealing the crown because you're going to be seeing a lot of that. So the story here is that deep inside a long-lost diamond mine, there's this temple chamber from a long-lost civilization. Inside the temple, on top of a pedestal, sits a golden crown guarded by the mountain's inhabitants. Whoever has the courage to swipe the crown and escape the mountaintop will become
the Mountain King.
At a glance, this will look something like a bridge game between the two Pitfall games, and that actually kind of works out considering Pitfall 1 came out a year earlier in 1982 and Pitfall 2 came out a year later, even though they were from a separate company. You control this little stick figure man, and the gameplay consists of side-scrolling platforming action. Looking at this now, this is obviously going to seem pretty basic. You typically had to use your imagination for Atari 2600 games, and Mountain King was certainly no exception to that rule. You move your unnamed adventurer left or right with the joystick, and you can also duck or climb ladders. You activate your flashlight by pressing the fire button. To jump, you have to press diagonally in the direction you want to jump, and you can actually jump further depending on how long you hold that down. Your guy can jump pretty dang far. Whoa! Whoa! The goal is to run around the mine collecting diamonds until you get to 1,000 points. The loose diamonds you see on the ground are worth 25 points, but if you use your flashlight, you might also find hidden treasure chests in the dark that are worth a cool 250 points. Push down on the joystick to pick these up and keep moving till you get to 1,000. After you breach 1,000 points, now you have to start looking for the flame spirit that you'll need to enter the temple and grab the crown. Keep moving until you start to hear music playing. In an interesting feat of programming, music will begin to play once you start to get close to the flame spirit and will actually keep getting louder and louder the closer you get to it. You'll want to be scanning the entire screen area and you're looking for a faint flickering. See it there? Okay, that's the flame spirit, and when you get close you can use your flashlight to see the little dancing frog or whatever. Press down to pick up the flame spirit and now your guy's all lit up and excited. Okay, settle down buddy, now we have to find the temple. It's possible you'll stumble onto the temple before you find the flame spirit since the spirit is in a different spot each time. Make your way to the temple, but you can't just walk up to it. There's a force field protecting it from the outside and it will knock you down and your guy will be dazed for a bit. You have to go to the platform below the temple, give the flame spirit to the ghost spirit who guards the temple, and then you'll have just a few seconds to climb up an invisible ladder up into the temple, grab the crown, and prepare yourself because the music starts playing and all hell breaks loose. Now you have to make your way back out of the mine the way you came in and basically get to the highest point in the mine, but the mountain comes alive. Bats come out of the woodwork trying to steal the crown back from you, and if you fall down to the lowest platform in the mountain, there's a spider that scurries across the floor, steals the crown, and wraps you in a web. If the spider hits you a second time while you're stuck in the web, it's game over. That spider's creepy. The hardest part though is these bats. Seriously, it's almost all based on luck because these bats are way too fast to avoid. Sometimes you can duck or jump over them, but even when they're on the same level as you, they may be a few pixels high or low, and it's tough to tell if you should jump or duck, and you're probably gonna guess wrong anyway. If a bat hits you, it steals the crown and then you have to make your way back to the temple, but at that point you may as well hit the reset button on the console because you're probably gonna run out of time anyway, and that's another thing. There's time limits on all of these tasks. So when the game starts, depending on the difficulty level, you've got 8 minutes to find the flame spirit, get the crown, and then escape. But once you get to the crown, you've only got 90 seconds to escape the mine, no matter how fast you retrieved it. This is pretty tough with all of these bats flying all over the place, and also, the play control here is not great. To be fair, it's an Atari game, and platforming was not exactly its strong suit. None of the platforming games, including both Pitfalls, were all that good on the controls to begin with, but Mountain King is especially rough due to the way jumping is handled. Instead of using the button to jump, you have to use the joystick and hold diagonally. This led to a lot of people wearing out their Atari controllers since you had to hold it in an awkward diagonal motion for extended periods of time to make some of the longer jumps. And even then, it's not all that precise. I will say it's a little easier if you hook in a Sega Genesis controller so that you can use a D-pad, but even then, your thumb is going to be pretty sore. You do have a few helpful quality of life perks, such as being able to catch yourself on ladders mid-jump, and being able to jump longer depending on how long you hold down the joystick, but still, I don't know how many times I just missed a jump and plummeted down several levels. At that point, even if a bat didn't get you, you may as well start over because there's no way you're going to make it out with that 90-second time limit. You have to make an almost near perfect run, which is borderline impossible without a little bit of luck. Alright, so it seems like I'm complaining here, but I will say this game has a few really cool things going for it. For starters, it's a platforming game on Atari. I feel like it's important to look at this through the lens of what it would have been like to play in 1983. There really weren't many games like it except the aforementioned Pitfall, so I can forgive it for being a little rough around the edges. It handles the scrolling pretty well, certainly not all buttery smooth like an NES side-scroller, but I mean it's not bad. The graphics are basic, but the animations for your character and the bats and stuff is all pretty good. I like how if you press up and you're not in front of a ladder, your little stick guy just kinda shrugs at you. I don't know, what do you want me to do? The flashlight mechanic revealing hidden items in the background is also clever and adds a bit of nuance to the game's setting. And this is one of the few Atari games that has music, so that's something. It features 2 famous tracks by composer Edvard Grieg. The first is Anitra's Dance. This is what plays as you're getting closer to the flame spirit. The second track is, personally, my all-time favorite classical composition, Grieg's appropriately titled In the Hall of the Mountain King. It's a piece of music that surprisingly fits perfectly with the flow of the game. The tune starts off kinda slow and methodical, as does the game when you're just wandering around collecting diamonds. Then when you find the crown and everything goes off the rails as you're trying to escape and bats are flying all over the place, that's similar to the latter portion of the piece when it turns into an over-the-top bombastic fanfare. Mountain King on Atari 2600 is able to achieve all of this with the help of a special add-on RAM chip baked into the cartridge, hence the Jazzy RAM Plus label on the box. This chip provided an additional 256 bytes of RAM for the system to utilize in running the game and was one of 3 cartridges to feature RAM Plus from CBS Electronics. The other 2 were Tunnel Runner and Omega Race. There were other companies that had similar RAM add-on chips baked into their cartridges as well. Pitfall 2 had a special chip inside that allowed the game to have music throughout and helped ease up the graphical load on the system a bit. Mountain King also has an interesting glitch that opens up a whole other weird world hovering above the existing mines that you explore. If you time this jump just right, you'll bounce off the top platform that you normally escape through and then fly way up into the air and land on this tiny platform. Now you can climb up and there's this whole other glitchy weird world up here known as Glitch Heaven. This is crazy, it's like you're seeing the memory of the game or something. The lines also change depending upon the orientation of the difficulty switches on the console and a few other things. I'm not sure what the point of this is or if it was even intentional, but it's worth checking out. So anyway, from that perspective, when you look at everything this game tries to do on an Atari 2600, Mountain King was a fairly impressive achievement for its time. Unfortunately, if you're like me and had never played it before when it was initially released, I'm not sure if I could necessarily recommend going out of your way to play it now, especially given it has a lofty price tag of $20 or more for a physical copy. The painfully inaccurate jumping may prove to be too much of a deal breaker for most folks. There are other versions of this game on Intellivision, ColecoVision, and the Atari 5200, and maybe Mountain King would be a bit more accessible to first-time players on those consoles. I don't know. Again, I'm not saying this is a bad game. It's really cool to see it in action on the Atari, but for me personally, Atari games that are still fun to pick up and play today are the ones that didn't try to do too much. Your simple shooters like Chopper Command, Space Invaders, that sort of thing. Anyway, I'd love to hear what you thought of this game. Did you play this one growing up or discover it more recently? What are some other titles similar to this that you'd like to see covered here on the channel? As always, thank you for watching. Please don't text and drive, and I'll see you next time on Friday Night Arcade.